I feel like as a black man, when we think about what our identity is, or like what a black identity is for us, um, it's it's deep, because I think that we already are born with a certain set of beliefs, or not even necessarily born, but as a black man, especially with black parents, you're going to be raised a certain way or raised to think a certain way, because in a lot of ways, the identity of a black man, we have at one point, in one sense, we have a target on our back, but in another sense, we also are, we can be seen as perpetrators. There's like not one way to define yourself as a black man. And I think that we come into problems when we try to define a black man in one way. I don't think that what you wear, or how you present yourself, who you love, or what you believe in. I don't think any of that dictates who you are as a black man. I think the only thing that makes you a black man or not is really like you owning that, and then also owning all those other identities and all the other things that you believe along with that. I'm from Houston, Texas. I'm a Texan, but my father was born in Nigeria, whereas my mother, she was born in Louisiana, raised in Houston. So I think for me, starting at a very young age, I saw like the expanse that like black culture had to offer. I saw that what I might do that I consider black is not the same thing that my father does. And I think that when I was younger and I didn't, have a full understanding, I had a smaller idea of what a black male identity was, or like just what a black identity could be. So I think that I was only like, open to attaching myself to certain things or believing certain things. But as I've gotten older and I began to really see the full value of all the things that black culture has to offer, not just in the United States, but also in Africa, the Caribbean, the UK, wherever we are, I think that it's important for us to kind of bridge connections and build those bridges. When we start to, break down these walls, we're going to be able to not only celebrate our history, but also really imagine what our future is going to look like, and like what we can build from where we are now. It's no question that when you're a black person, you know how the world can perceive you. You know how you can be seen by others. And you also know how you cannot be seen by others. Like when people just see through you and they don't really see you as a real person. And I think the best way to combat that is, one, accepting the truths that exists within us. Like I think as black people, we have a distinct culture. And I think a lot of times stereotypes only work because people don't understand the depth of that culture. They don't understand why certain things are happening, or why we make certain cultural decisions, or why we eat certain things, or why we move the way we do. And I think that when we own our truth and say, you might say we eat this and that, but at the same time, that's a part of our culture and the basis of the cuisine of this country. What happened in 2020 reinforced the same way I felt when I was 14 years old and Trayvon Martin got killed. Like I still remember the frustration and the anger and all that stuff I felt as a child. And those same feelings that I felt were the feelings I felt with George Floyd. And that hit even harder because George Floyd is from Houston. Like that's Big Floyd. He's from Third Ward. Like he's somebody who was known. So when that happened, like in our city, like people felt that, even though they didn't even happen in our city. So it was even more so. And I think at the same time that what happened with George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery got killed. And I remember one of my cousins was literally like, "Oh my God, he just looked like you. I don't know why. Like he just looked like you," and I just got scared. I remember like arguing with my parents a lot that summer. They were like, "Oh, you're kind of getting radical, or you're like feeling like you're so frustrated." But I'm like, this is not frustrating that's coming from this one event. This is frustration that like, every year something like this happens, and now it's kind of like the boiling point. So I think that, it's easy for us as a country to say, man, like we didn't know any of this was happening until 2020, and that's why we feel this way. But it's like, no, we feel this way because honestly a large section of our population has always felt like this, and they've been ignored, and now it's all of a sudden it's being put on the pedestal. And I think in a lot of ways some people is good. I mean, I'm not going to say it's bad. I'm glad people are thinking about this and that they're trying to change their ways to make the country better. But at the same time, it's like if you've been blind for 30, 40, 50, 100, 200 years, and you just decide this year that this is the year we're going to say that the problem is happening, how do you expect people to respond? How do you expect people to really trust you as an ally or trust you earnestly if it takes something so extreme, something so grotesque for you to care? Black History Month has been so important to me my whole life. Starting from like church, like we used to have Black Men History Month program. I was always on a program like reading speeches and stuff like that. And it was even in middle school, I went to all boys like middle school, pretty much all black. Our character model was Frederick Douglass. So we always would learn. We had to read his narrative. We had to read his autobiography. We had to learn about all this history. And we used to have a Black History Month program every year where we were learning about all these figures, and not just Martin Luther King and Harriet Tubman. I'm talking about like, Henry Box Brown, who people don't even know who that is. But, that's somebody who shipped himself to freedom. It's like learning stories like that where you see people like black people historically, and not all the narratives are wrapped up in slavery. I don't like staying there, but I'm like, you just see people learning how to take agency, and like so much of our history is wrapped in this country that we don't even know about. I don't like to separate it, because as a person, yes, my father's Nigerian, my mom is black, but I can only be the experiences that I am. Even though I am a part, like even though their cultures are a part of me, I can only be my own experiences. And learning those histories throughout, every stage of my life, I've had the beautiful opportunity to like really work with organizations that promote like black culture and history. So I've learned a lot, but I feel like learning those stories is like what have allowed me to feel empowered myself. Like knowing that where we are now has been forged by the steps of so many people behind me, and not just the people that we hear all the time, and not just for not just for things like voting rights and civil rights, but also like the arts, cooking, like fashion, like inventions. Like there's so much stuff that we have done that it's like, as a black person, you can't help but be proud when you learn it. And I think that so many issues that we have can be fixed when people just learn the history, because I think when you're proud of something, there's no way you're going to, you walk differently, you hold your head up differently, and I think that's important for us as people.